On April 8, 2025, a 2019 Toyota Camry rolled into my shop on a flatbed. The owner stood next to it with the kind of look I have only seen at funerals. The engine had seized at 71,000 miles. The car had been religiously maintained. Oil changes every 5,000 miles, full synthetic, original Toyota filter. Air cleaner on schedule. Spark plugs swapped at 60,000 miles. He did absolutely everything right. Except one small thing. For 3 years, to save 20 cents per gallon, he had been filling up at the same unbranded discount station 2 blocks from his house. That single habit destroyed an engine engineered to easily reach 300,000 miles. He did not believe me. So I drained his fuel tank into a clear container in front of him. What came out was not gasoline. It was something darker, cloudier. There was a visible layer at the bottom that should not have been there. His face changed in real time. Today, I am exposing the 7 categories of gas brands that are quietly destroying Toyota engines from the inside out. Why most drivers will never see the damage coming until it is catastrophic, and how to spot the brands you should never let near your fuel tank again. I have been working on Toyotas for over 2 decades, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that the single most underestimated factor in Toyota engine longevity is not the oil you use. It is not how aggressively you drive. It is not how often you change your air filter. It is the gas going into the tank. Here is the uncomfortable truth almost no driver hears. Not all gasoline is created equal. The EPA sets a minimum standard for detergent additives in United States gasoline. That minimum is so low that back in the early 2000s, Toyota, along with BMW, General Motors, Honda, Volkswagen, and Mercedes-Benz, looked at the carbon deposits forming inside engines burning minimum standard fuel and concluded that the legal baseline was simply not enough. So they created their own private certification. They called it Top Tier. To carry the Top Tier badge, a gasoline brand must use a detergent additive package roughly 2 to 3 times stronger than EPA minimum. And that detergent must be present in every grade the brand sells, regular, mid, and premium. AAA performed an independent study in 2016 that put the two side by side. After 4,000 miles, engines burning top-tier gasoline had 19 times less intake valve deposit than engines burning non-top-tier fuel. Read that number again. 19 times less. Same engine, same oil, same driver. The only variable was the brand of gas going into the tank. That difference, compounded across the 200,000 to 400,000 miles your Toyota was engineered to live, is the difference between an engine that hums at high mileage and an engine that seizes at 71,000 with a confused owner standing next to a flatbed. So which brands should you avoid? Let me walk you through the 7 specific categories I would never put into a Toyota I owned and would actively warn my own family away from. The first one is the foundation. The rest are the wolves dressed in different costumes. Category 1. Any brand not on the official top-tier certified list. This is the starting line. The top-tier list is publicly maintained at toptiergas.com. It is updated regularly. There is no debate, no interpretation, no gray area. Either a brand is on that list or it is not. Brands you will find on it include Shell, Chevron, Exxon, Mobil, Texaco, BP, Phillips 66, 76, Sinclair, Marathon, Quick Trip, Costco, Sunoco, and several others. Brands not on the list. And I am not naming individuals here because the list changes, but you will know them when you check. Include most regional discount chains, most no-name independents, most grocery store-attached pumps that are not part of a certified program, and most truck stop generics. If the brand you are about to fuel up with cannot be found on that list, you are buying minimum standard fuel. Fuel that Toyota's own engineers, the engineers who designed your engine, explicitly stated is not sufficient to keep that engine clean. That is not my opinion. That is documentation. Pull up the list right now on your phone and check the brand you usually use. If it's missing, that's the entire video summarized in one screenshot. Category 2. The unbranded or wholesale discount station. These are the stations you've seen 100 times. No national name on the sign, just a generic gas sign or a name nobody has ever heard of outside a 5-mile radius. These stations buy their fuel from secondary or tertiary distributors. Their detergent package, when it exists at all, sits right at the EPA minimum. And here is what makes them especially dangerous for Toyotas. Low traffic means low fuel turnover. Low turnover means fuel sits in poorly maintained underground tanks for weeks at a time. That fuel oxidizes. It develops gum. It absorbs moisture from the air. By the time it reaches your tank, it is already chemically degraded. Water in your gasoline does not just hurt the engine, it eats the precision-machined surfaces inside your fuel injectors. And Toyota's high-pressure fuel injection systems, especially the direct injection setups in newer Camrys, RAV4s, and Highlanders, are extraordinarily sensitive to that kind of contamination. Category 3. The always 30 cents cheaper regional discount chains. You know the ones. They cluster near interstate exits and on the cheaper end of town. The owners are not bad people. They are running on margins so thin that the only place left to cut cost is the additive package. Independent fuel testing has shown again and again that these chains run their detergent levels right at the legal minimum, which is well below the threshold needed to keep deposits off the intake valves of a modern Toyota engine. The 30 cents you save per gallon turns into hundreds of dollars of accumulated carbon over a year. And carbon is patient. It builds quietly. It doesn't trigger a warning light. It doesn't make a noise. It simply degrades combustion efficiency a fraction of a percent at a time until your Toyota that used to get 32 miles per gallon is getting 26, and you have no idea why. Category 4. Grocery store fuel that is not top-tier certified. This is a trap most drivers fall straight into. The logic feels intuitive. The grocery chain is reputable. The name on the storefront is familiar. The prices are competitive. Therefore, the gas must be quality fuel. That logic does not hold. Some grocery store fuel programs are top-tier certified. Costco is the most famous example, and their fuel is excellent. Many others are not. Their fuel comes from whichever supplier won the contract that quarter. The exact same pump with the exact same loyalty discount can be selling premium quality top-tier fuel one year and minimum standard discount fuel the next. There is only one way to know for certain. Check the top-tier list. Do not trust the logo on the storefront. The logo doesn't put fuel in your tank. The supplier does. Category 5. Truck stops with no major brand affiliation. Truck stops are interesting because they sell enormous volumes of diesel. The diesel turnover is fast. Diesel quality at most truck stops is decent, but the gasoline side of the operation is often an afterthought. Gasoline turnover is slow. Tank maintenance is rare. The primary customers, long-haul truckers, are not buying gasoline, so the gasoline pumps do not get the attention. I have personally drawn fuel samples from truck stop gasoline tanks that contained visible water layered at the bottom, visible sediment suspended throughout, and a yellowish tint that does not belong in modern gasoline. If a truck stop's gasoline side does not display a top-tier major brand, treat that pump like radioactive waste and keep driving. Category 6. Stations near active construction zones or recently disturbed ground. This one is environmental, but it overlaps with brand because the stations with the worst seals tend to be the same ones we've already talked about. When a gas station's underground tanks have aging or compromised seals, and there is active vibration from nearby construction, groundwater seeps in. You cannot see it. The pump cannot detect it. But in your fuel tank, water and gasoline separate because they do not mix. The water settles at the bottom. Your Toyota's in-tank fuel pump also sits at the bottom, which means the water gets sucked up first, pushed through the fuel rail at high pressure, and sprayed directly into the combustion chamber. If you've ever heard a Toyota stumble, shake, or stall at idle a few hours after fueling up, this is often the cause, and the damage to injectors and fuel pumps is rarely reversible. Category 7. The brands that look national but aren't certified. These are the most dangerous of all because they are designed to trick you. They have professional signage, polished pumps, and multicolor logos that visually echo the major brands from a distance. They want you to glance, assume legitimacy, and pull in. But pull up the top tier list, and these brands are nowhere on it. They have engineered their visual identity to suggest quality while actually selling the cheapest minimum standard fuel they can legally pour into their tanks. I won't name specific examples because the names vary by region, but the pattern is consistent. If a brand looks like a major brand, but you can't quite place it, that's the moment to check the list before you swipe your card. The 5 seconds it takes to verify is worth it for the engine. So, those are the 7 categories. Now let me tell you what actually happens inside your Toyota when this fuel goes in over and over again. The damage is not dramatic. That is exactly why it is dangerous. There is no check engine light. There is no stumble at idle. There is no smoke from the tailpipe. The engine simply begins to drift. Carbon deposits build on intake valves in a fine, gritty layer. The combustion chamber loses a tiny % of its efficiency. The engine control unit compensates by adjusting fuel trims, by tweaking ignition timing, by pulling back on the engine's natural responsiveness. You don't feel it because the computer is hiding it. But under the hood, your Toyota is slowly being asked to work harder for the same output. Fuel economy drops a fraction of a % each month. Throttle response gets a little duller. Cold starts get a little rougher. Eventually, after enough thousands of miles, the deposits hit a critical mass. Spray patterns from the injectors collapse. Combustion goes from clean to incomplete. Unburned fuel starts washing past the piston rings, contaminating the oil. The catalytic converter, downstream, gets force-fed excess fuel and overheats. And that's when the real damage begins. Catalytic converter replacement on a Camry is $1,800. Intake valve carbon cleaning is $600 to $900. Fuel pump assembly, $700. Injector set, $1,200. And in the worst case, the Camry on the flatbed at the start of this video, an entirely seized engine costs $8,400 for the long block plus labor. The economics are absurd when you actually do the math. Top-tier gasoline typically costs 5 to 15 cents per gallon more than the cheapest discount fuel. Over a full year, for the average commuter driving 15,000 miles in a 30 miles per gallon Toyota, that's somewhere between $80 and $250 in extra fuel cost. Compare that to a $1,800 catalytic converter, a $900 valve cleaning, or an $8,400 engine. Compare it to the resale value of a Toyota whose engine is mechanically sound versus one with documented fuel system damage. The cheap gas was never cheap. It just deferred the bill. What makes this so frustrating is how preventable it is. There is no diagnostic complexity to this. There is no special tool. There is no mechanic-only technique. There is one simple action. Open your phone, search top-tier gas, find your brand on the list. That's it. If it's on the list, you're protected. If it's not, you have your answer. The Camry owner who rolled in on the flatbed had a long conversation with me that afternoon. He kept asking the same question in different ways. If this was so important, why didn't anyone tell me? And the honest answer is that nobody profits from telling you. The gas station selling you minimum standard fuel does not advertise that it's minimum standard. The dealership that ends up replacing your engine doesn't trace the failure back to your gas habit on the invoice, they just bill you for the repair. Toyota's own owner's manual does mention the top-tier recommendation, but it's buried on page 386 of a document almost nobody reads. The information is technically out there, it's just buried under everything else competing for your attention. So most owners discover it the way the Camry owner did, standing next to a flatbed. But you don't have to discover it that way. You know now. Before the next time you pull up to a pump, take 90 seconds. Verify your brand. Drop the 20 cents per gallon savings if you have to. Your Toyota's engine, the one engineered in Japan to run for 200,000 or 300,000 miles, was not built to live on minimum standard fuel. It was built around a higher standard. Feed it that standard, and it will reward you with the kind of longevity Toyotas are famous for. Feed it anything less, and you are slowly bleeding out an engine that should have outlasted 3 cars. If this changed how you think about the pump, hit the like button so more Toyota owners see it before they make the same mistake. Subscribe if you want weekly breakdowns of the silent habits that quietly kill Toyota engines long before mileage does. And drop a comment with the brand you usually fill up with so we can see how many of us were unknowingly hurting our engines. Because the most expensive tank of gas isn't the one that costs the most at the pump. It's the one that costs you the engine 6 years later, and now you know exactly which tanks those are.